Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. When the writer of a memoir reveals they've done something bad, what are they hoping to accomplish? Sometimes it's a public apology. Sometimes it's here's how that went down from my perspective. But is there a third option here? It's a question I thought about listening to today's interview. It's between NPR's Sacha Pfeiffer and the renowned photographer Cory Richards, whose new memoir is titled The Color of Everything. In the interview, they talk about him copping to some of the kind of crappy things he's done and his intention behind talking about it publicly. And Sacha presses him on, is this an earnest attempt at communicating something about yourself, or is this just attention-seeking? That's after the break.
This message comes from Schwab. With Schwab investing themes, it's easy to invest in ideas you believe in, like online music and videos, artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, and more. Schwab's research uncovers emerging trends, then their technology curates relevant stocks into over 40 themes to choose from. Schwab Investing Themes is not intended to be investment advice or a recommendation of any stock or investment strategy. Visit schwab.com/thematic investing.
Cory Richards has climbed some of the world's highest peaks and almost lost his life on some of them. You may have seen his famous self-portrait of his ice-crusted face after he was caught in an avalanche while mountain climbing in the Himalayas. He says he loved the outdoors starting when he was young, but also had a troubled childhood.
I was a gifted kid. I went to high school 2 years early. So my second year in high school, my grades sort of fell off a cliff, and there was more and more upset in the home. And then I ended up dropping out of high school altogether. I got put in psychiatric unit. I got put in an inpatient, outpatient treatment center for 8 months.
Photography became his escape, and he eventually began traveling the globe for National Geographic magazine. Now he's written a memoir about the ups and downs he's faced. It's called The Color of Everything, a journey to quiet the chaos within.
High-end climbing at that level is oftentimes deeply tied to extreme levels of stress. And when you couple that with the demand to document it, while it can be very freeing and beautiful, and you have these very, very big, meaningful experiences, at the same time, it can be a very long, sort of tedious meditation on your own mortality. So when you go on these big expeditions, say trying to climb a new route on Everest without oxygen, I'm also constantly thinking about death and dying. And so in those moments of fear, both in anticipation and on the climb, yeah, I hate climbing. It's terrible. But then you quickly forget, right? And then you're like, this was the best thing I ever did.
Well, you also note that, survival sells stories. And as you survived and were able to sell stories, you sold more photos. So it kind of propelled you forward because it had a positive effect on your career.
One of the things that I started to realize is that, a very successful career does not always a healthy brain make. I look at somebody's success and I go, well, they must be really happy and really healthy, when in fact there was proof in my own life that that isn't true. And unraveling that was really hard, because when I let go of those identities, I really question, well, what place do I have in the world, and what is my value here? And how do I find it if I'm not those things?
Mm. You kind of became a stereotype of this dashing, itinerant adventure photographer and the wildlife that comes with it. You talk about your drinking and drugs. You cheated on a wife. You were an unreliable friend. On the other hand, you had a lot of mental health issues, which you're open about, and the ongoing highs and lows that come with being bipolar, which is a diagnosis you got. Why share that?
We joked early on it could be Mountain's memoir, mea culpa. I never wanted it to be an apology, because I think apology is not necessarily the right term. What I wanted it to be, and what I worked really hard towards, was a reconciliation and an acknowledgement that there are complications in life, specifically mental health, but that doesn't excuse me from making decisions that negatively impact other people. And I see so much in culture right now where, because we've learned the language of psychology, we've learned the language of trauma, that oftentimes people learn their stories, and then that story can almost become an excuse for not very good behavior.
How much do you think the various mental health issues that you are very open about versus the corrosive effect of celebrity explains the ways that you could behave badly?
I think they sort of are equal in some ways because they feed each other, right? I'm living with a mind that I don't want to call it unstable, but it has specific hurdles. And as you add the added stress, which then becomes what I would call a toxic stress of fame or notoriety, that compounds sort of the anxiety and depression in a way. I found that it was very hard to say, hey, look, I'm bipolar, ergo all of my terrible decisions are somehow excusable. For me, it doesn't work that way, and I think that's very problematic.
Mm. You write in your memoir, you kind of had your own Me Too incident. Are you disclosing this for the first time in your book?
I'm disclosing it publicly for the first time in my book. The people closest to me know about this, and it was a really, really hard moment for me. It was incredibly challenging.
You basically goosed a woman. Let's say you kind of thumped this woman on the butt in a public setting. I believe she was arguably a superior, or someone who worked at National Geographic, correct? Where you were doing assignments?
Yeah.
And years later, you get a call from a lawyer. Essentially, you didn't face permanent legal consequences. Do you believe it had a damaging effect on your career?
Damaging is hard. I think it had an absolutely profoundly positive impact on my life to go through it. After that point, I no longer worked for National Geographic, despite the fact that it was all sort of worked out, and I was invited back to work for them. What I really noted was by that time, the psychology of the office had changed, and so much was going on, including COVID and George Floyd, that the space for me as a photographer there seemed to have run its course. And so while there was enthusiasm at times, but hey, you should come back and shoot another article, to me it felt like that piece of my life was over. And part of that was shame, and part of it was pain, and part of it was really just an extension of what was going on in the world.
I assume you have a thick enough skin to hear this because you've been so open in your book. But I suspect there are many people who don't like you and will hate this book and find it very self-helpy and wonder if it's an extension of attention-seeking. How do you field that possible criticism?
Thank you. That was the most refreshing question ever asked. I assume you're probably right. And I'm okay with that. And there was a time where sharing like this was about attention seeking, truly was. But the beauty of writing it was the shift from making this about me to get attention to sharing, hopefully for the benefit of other people, so that in reading it, they might also see that life is very messy, it's hard at times, and that they might feel validated in their own unique struggles.
That's Cory Richards. His new memoir is The Color of Everything, a journey to quiet the chaos within. Cory, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Support for NPR and the following message come from Bombus. Bombus makes absurdly soft socks, underwear, and T-shirts. And for every item you purchase, Bombus donates another to someone facing homelessness. Get 20% off your first purchase at bombus.com/NPR and use code NPR.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Leesa. Good sleep should come naturally. And with the new Natural Hybrid mattress, it can. A collaboration between Leesa and West Elm, the Natural Hybrid is expertly crafted from natural latex, natural wool, and certified safe foams to elevate your sleep sanctuary and support a greener tomorrow. Plus, every purchase helps fuel Leesa's work with shelters and those in need. Visit Leesa.com to learn more. That's LEESA.com.